Yes, it's time for another virtual drag race, but instead of doing just the drag race, I thought I'd compare two different powertrains for the new Kia Sorento. Kia Australia offers 10 different variants of the Sorento, and that's split up between Sport and S, Sport Plus, and GT-Line trim levels. And then you can pick from 3 different powertrains, including a V6 petrol, which is front-wheel drive only, a turbo diesel, which is four-wheel drive only, and then a 1.6 turbo petrol hybrid, which you can get in front-wheel drive or four-wheel drive. It's a little bit confusing, I know, so I thought I'd show you the difference between the diesel and the V6 petrol. Now, in the performance test, I could only get the Sport Plus version of the petrol versus the GT line of the diesel. But I'm looking at the specs here, and there's not a huge difference, but the weight would probably be a bit heavier in the GT line because it comes with a sunroof and things like that. Although the specs show the Sport Plus petrol V6 is 1,898 kilograms tare, and that's the same for the GT line V6. So the specs don't actually show any difference, but I think in the real world there would be a difference. There's also 20-inch wheels on the GT line versus 19s on the Sport Plus. Either way, we can check out the performance difference between the two variants. Let's get stuck in. Starting with the price. The price of the diesel GT line is $68,590, and then I'll use the GT line for the petrol V6 in terms of just comparing these specs and numbers. So the price of the GT line petrol V6 is $65,590. So that's a $3,000 price difference. Now, one of the reasons you'd go for the diesel is the fuel consumption. So on paper, the official average is 6 litres per 100 kilometres for the all-wheel drive diesel versus 9.8 litres per 100 for the V6 GT line front-wheel drive. That's a pretty big difference. You're going to be spending a lot more on the V6 petrol. And in fact, if we use that official average to calculate a theoretical range from the 67-litre fuel tank, which is featured in both models, just double check that. Yep, so both have a 67-litre fuel tank. The theoretical range in the diesel is 1,117 kilometres, whereas the petrol is 684 kilometres. So it's almost double. No, not quite, but yeah, you really can get a lot more out of the diesel in terms of travelling. Going off that $3,000 price difference and using the official average consumption of 9.8 litres per 100 kilometres, and using today's average fuel price in New South Wales of $1.88 for E10 or 91 RON fuel, which the V6 accepts. I wouldn't use 91 all the time. I'd try and use 95, even use a bit of 98 every now and again, just to help the engine run a bit smoother. But anyway, we'll use these figures anyway, just to give you a bit of a theoretical potential. So $1.88 will get you about $3,000 will get you about 16,000 kilometres in the V6 at a price of $1.88 per litre. It's not a huge difference, but that's probably about a year worth of driving. Just as a side note though, and a bit of a professional opinion, I guess, diesels are usually, or modern diesels, are usually better if you get them out onto the open road pretty much every time you drive them. If you're just zipping around the city and, stop, start driving, start it up, whiz down the road, 5 minutes down the road, turn it off again. Diesels don't tend to really like that. So the V6 could be a good option there if you're just driving around in the city. However, if you're driving around in the city all the time, you might consider the hybrid version. It's rated at 5.7 litres per 100 kilometres. And actually, if you're driving in the city consumption, the official consumption in the city is 4.2. So that provides a theoretical maximum range, so driving in the city, of 1,595 kilometres. The combined cycle range hasn't shown that in the specs, I had to calculate that out, which was 1,175. So it's not that much more than the diesel, actually. If you're doing a bit of some city driving and some out in the country driving, the hybrid doesn't really pay off that quickly because the combined cycle range is very similar to that 1,117 kilometres in the diesel. Regardless of the petrol or diesel model, you're getting a 179 litre boot with all 3 rows of seats up, or 1996 litres with all rear rows down. Both have a 15,000 kilometre service interval, or 12 months, and both are rated at a brake towing capacity of 2,000 kilograms. The hybrid drops down to 1,650 kilograms braked. Now, the new Sorento, in my opinion, is a fantastic 7-seat SUV. I like the way it looks. It looks very modern. It's got these sharp edges, very square and sort of rugged tones in it as well. The same with the interior. It's got this sort of upright focus or the upright theme. Lots of storage, USB and cup holders for everyone. And it feels like it's good quality too. A lot of the trimmings and everything, they feel good quality. There's plenty of space for passengers as well. The third row isn't the most spacious, but not many 7-seat SUVs offer really good third row space for adults. There's just the upper end models like the Nissan Patrol Y62. That offers pretty good room even for adults. But a lot of these monocoque style crossover SUVs, they don't have the best third row space for adults. For kids, it's absolutely great. What would I pick? Well, I'd take the diesel because I live out of the city. I do a lot of sort of touring and that sort of driving. So the diesel makes more sense to me. But if I did live in the city, I would strongly consider the hybrid actually. It weighs pretty much identical to the diesel, but it's got a bit more power. It's 169 kilowatts. So the power to weight ratio is a bit better in the hybrid. But yeah, you're getting that good fuel economy in the cities. So 4.2, the official rating. That's really good. But what's actually quicker across 0 to 100 and the quarter mile? Well, we went out into the private road and lined them up. As usual, put the cameras in the exact same spot. I know when the vehicles start driving, so I've timed it so the cameras show what a drag race would look like if you actually had them there side by side. On paper, the petrol has the advantage. It has 200 kilowatts versus 148 in the diesel. The diesel is four-wheel drive, so you get better traction, I guess. But the petrol doesn't have too many issues getting off the line. And the power to weight ratio is in favor of the V6 as well. So you've got 74.9 kilowatts per tonne for the diesel and then 105.3 kilowatts per tonne for the V6 petrol. That's the GT-Line, by the way. So we're testing the Sport Plus, which on paper is the same weight. So you might have slightly different results if you use the GT, in my opinion, just because you've got different features and things weighing it down a little bit more. There we have it. The petrol just gets across the line quicker. As you'd expect, it has better top end. The quarter mile is quicker in the V6, and that trap speed is obviously higher in the V6 as well. That's where power, outright power, wins against torque. Even though the diesel offers good, strong torque figure, and from low RPM, it's the top end power where the V6 wins. Stay tuned for our full review on the website, coming very soon. Thanks for watching.